Hi, everyone. Am I back? Can you see me? I'm having some technical difficulties tonight. My internet is down. Did I make it work? If you're there, please say hi so that I know. I can't see. I can't see what's happening. So, hello and welcome to Tuesday Night Lives in Launching Life with Autism. This group is for parents who are new to autism, who are struggling with the chaos that autism has brought to their lives. If that sounds like you and you want to get calm and understand and connect with your child, then you are in the right place. And I am wondering right now if I am in the right place because nothing seems to be happening here. I'm checking. I'm checking again. I'm checking in. Texting some people. You can see me? Amy says all good. She can see me. Awesome. I just cannot see who is here. So I'm not sure if I am going to be able to see that you have questions or see that you are participating. Something is going on here and it doesn't seem to be working the way that it should. Um, but if, oh, and she says I stopped and restarted. Um, Amy's going to share. Awesome. I love this, Amy. Thank you. So, Amy's on her phone. I'm on my phone. And she says if there are questions or comments that appear, she's going to share them with me right here. So, here we go. This is going to work now. I am your host, Erin Porter, and Amy is my co host on my phone. Thank you, Amy. I went through the same chaos that you're going through during 28 years in education. And now I'm on a mission to help parents get through that chaos too. What I learned and implemented in those 28 years in the classroom and in special education has helped hundreds of parents and teachers calm the chaos that autism has brought to their lives. It's weird. I feel like I'm talking to no one. But I'm just going to keep on going. Here we go. Today, we're discussing choosing therapies. There were a number of posts this week and discussions in our group about therapies, opinions about different types of therapies, and questions about where to start. So, are you wondering what is the best therapy to start with? Which ones are better than others, or what order to do things in? So, right off the bat, I want to tell you that this live stream is not going to give you the answer that you're probably looking for. I'm not going to tell you which therapy is best or my opinions on one over the other. Tonight is about understanding the real problem that you're trying to solve, and looking at circumstances differently. Tonight is about a new perspective about therapy and a different way forward. I spoke with some group members today and yesterday since I made that post about therapy, and many people said the same thing. They didn't know where to start. They don't understand what it is their child needs, and they don't understand what each therapy is for or what it's supposed to accomplish. All of the parents that I've supported in my coaching business have told me the same thing. Like some of the people I spoke to yesterday, too, they were told to get their child into speech and OT and PT and ABA or play therapy. Basically, their doctors told them to just load them up with whatever therapies they could get their hands on and do as much as they can because early intervention is the way to go. But all of them said that there was no explanation, no reason for any particular therapy, just a sense of urgency to get as much as they could. Does that sound familiar? If it does, you can comment there and Amy will tell me that you've commented. Yep, still nothing. Okay, so I want to be clear. I am not disagreeing with the early intervention part. I 100% think that the sooner you can get started, the better. But I want to offer you tonight a different approach to what you're getting started with. So let's be clear before we start. Many of the people who are here tonight listening and in the group are waiting for funding and need to be money conscious. Others have the ability to pay for private therapies. So, what I want to start with now is a bit of a disclaimer. Even though I'm speaking to two different groups here, you're all coming from the same place. What is the best therapy for your child? And that is the one that best fits your child's needs now. Now I'm checking. I think I have a question. Okay. No matter where you're coming from in terms of finances, you still need to pick the right therapy for your child if you're looking at doing therapies. So don't just grab something because it's free or because your name comes up on a list. Really dig down deep right now while you have the time to determine what therapy is right for your child. Then if your name comes up on a list or something is free and it's in alignment with what you want, you'll know to take it or not. Years ago, I supported a family who, when they started out with me, they had their son in everything and nothing was working. They wanted as much support as they could get because they didn't know what to do. So they just did it all. Some were free, some were private, some were funded. They did this with the best of intentions from their most kind and loving hearts. They just wanted their son to have as much help as he could get. So let me explain now. The problem this family was having with their 4-year-old boy was that he was scheduled out the wazoo. He would go to school all day and then do therapies in the evenings and a different one each night. He had school, he had speech, he had OT, he had PT, he had ABA, and they wanted to know about play therapy. And they did all this for over a year, and they never realized that none of the goals of each of the therapies matched each other. At school, for communication, they were using a core board. At ABA, they were using PACS. At speech, they were using sign language and a combination with PACS. They were so confused. Their son was so confused. And then their son started exhibiting some real behavior problems and he didn't want to go. And he cried and he actually regressed with his communication. So I'm not here to tell you which of those therapies is better than any of the others. What you need to determine is what are your priorities? And is your child open to the therapies that are your priorities? I'm asking this because many parents take their children to therapies and nothing's accomplished. And there's a big fight to get them there. So when your child is open to therapies and you match the right one up with what they need, that's when magic happens. Here's a myth. Just because you tell your child how to play or what to eat or that the food is healthy doesn't mean that they will do any of that. If your child isn't open to it, going won't make a difference at all. Now, a typically developing child may have a problem to solve. Let's use using utensils as an example, using a fork. If your child is developing typically and they are struggling with using a fork, then you help them use a fork. You may even get OT in if they have fine motor issues. Not so with autism. If your child with autism is struggling to use a fork, they're also likely struggling with other self help skills like brushing their teeth or getting dressed or bathing. And they're likely struggling with more than just self help skills. They're probably having difficulties with sleeping, eating, social relationships, toileting, coping. So, do you get a therapy for each of those things? Or do you just go for solving the fork problem? And what if your child doesn't want to use a fork? It doesn't matter how much you teach them the skill of stabbing their food with a fork. If they don't want to use the fork, they're not going to use the fork. Does that sound familiar? So now I want to ask you, what are your goals and what is your philosophy? If you want to just pick, like solve one thing, then pick the therapy that aligns with your goals and your philosophy. For example, if your goal is for your child to use a fork, then you would go find an OT to help with that. And hopefully your child would learn to use a fork. If they're open to learning to use a fork and doing the practice that's involved in learning how to do that. So then my question is, what are your goals and philosophy? I mean, your big goals. What do you want for your child, for their life? And which therapy aligns with your philosophy as a parent and a loving human? That's for you to figure out because you own those. They make up who you are and how you make your choices. Maybe you just never thought about it before or put it into words. I can tell you that this family that I supported a few years ago, they just wanted their son to communicate his wants. That was their goal. They had that one goal, and their philosophy was that if he could communicate what he wanted, that his behavior would stop. So when I worked with them, we streamlined the therapies to get everyone on board with one communication system and all work towards the same goal. Once we aligned their goal with a system that everyone was on board with, well, then some of the problem behaviors stopped and he was learned in one way to communicate his needs. But what if this family's goals were bigger? I often wonder this because I helped them with what they asked me to help them with. But what if they had thought bigger and wanted their son to live an independent life? What if they wanted him to sleep, sit at the table to eat the same food that they did, or solve his problems, or cope with change, or toilet, or do things for himself? They put in place a solution that was in alignment with their goals and or their one goal and their philosophy. But what if they had thought bigger than just expressing what he needed? What if they thought bigger than the fork? Here's the thing. If you have more than one therapist, like this family, they tend to not communicate with each other. Each therapy operates in its own little silo. Everyone is doing their own thing at their own appointment in their own way. And they're using a strategy to move your child forward in some predetermined way, like learning to use a fork. None of the therapists generally talk to each other. None of them plan together. And none of them really align their goals with each other. Does that sound familiar? So, your strategy here is to prioritize your services by prioritizing your goals that align with your philosophy. Then you'll know what to pick. And don't forget to put yourself into that philosophy. Like, is it your philosophy that you are the only one that can get your child through their day? Or you're the only one who can help your child live their life? And then does this make you worry about what will happen to your child when you're gone? Do any of the therapies address this or help prepare your child for when you're not there? So let's back things up. If you have a 3-year-old, you need to build relationships and engagement before you can teach skills. If you have a child who can't focus on you and can't engage with you, it doesn't matter how shiny any toy or object is or what you've got, they're not going to engage for very long. You need to have a relationship to teach. You need engagement to learn. That has to come before skills. And if you have a child or someone whose behavior is getting in the way of life, like spitting or hitting or punching, then you're going to need to get that behavior under control before they will be open to learning. And if you're trying to solve all of your child's problems, then you're going to stack up a lot of therapies like that 4-year-old boy I mentioned earlier. What if you looked at all of your child's problems as symptoms instead of problems? I'm talking about sleeping, eating, playing, self-help, communicating, toileting, coping. In a typically developing child, if they were having trouble sleeping, then you'd help them with their sleeping. But in children with autism, most of these things are problems that if you tackle separately, you end up with so many therapies and appointments, and the progress is really minimal. I've had so many parents tell me that strategies work a bit. They may be great for a few days or a week or a couple weeks, and then they fade and they're back to square one and they're tired and frustrated. Like, for example, using something that interests your child as a reward. Parents tell me all the time that this works for a little bit, but then their interest changes and it becomes kind of hit or miss anymore if the child's interested and they're back to square one. So, do you notice that all of the therapies and strategies never actually solve the problem? I have never had a parent say to me who's asked for help that their child is in whatever therapy and it changed their life. That they can do this thing now independently, whatever that thing is, and the parent can step away and they don't have to worry because their child is independent now with this. Like no reminders, no support, no help, no nothing. If you've had a child in therapy for a few months or for years, I want you to look at it really openly with your goals in mind. What is the goal of the therapy? What are your goals for your child and what is your philosophy? Is this therapy meeting those goals? I've spoken to parents who've had their children in therapy for years with very little progress because after a little while, they all lost sight of the goals. So, what are your most important goals? You work on those. That's where you find the magic. And what are your big goals for your child? Like for their life. And when you decide on your goals, take a look at what is getting in the way of that for your child. As much as you want your child to talk or use a fork or write, they can't do those things if there's things getting in the way. Like, are they in the corner self-harming or running away or lashing out or refusing to try? If their behavior is getting in the way of their life, you need more than speech and OT. You need self-regulation. If you're struggling with how to choose a service, look no further than your child and your family. What is the most important thing right now that you want for your child? Don't throw spaghetti at the wall and do as many things as you can fit into your day. Be intentional and thoughtful and take your child's lead. And if you don't know what you need, I can help you with that. I will talk to anyone and I will point you in the direction of your next right step. Did you know that I have a link for parents in this group so they can book a Zoom call to just connect and share? Just in the last 2 days, I've talked to 4 people from the group, and 4 other people booked a call after we messaged. I know that each of you will have a different next right step because each of you has different goals and philosophies for your child who is struggling. So if you want to talk this through, type "talk please." Just type it below. You don't have to figure this out yourself. Good night, everyone.